want to get real on a very important topic, child sexual abuse. So the first time he did it to you, did you?
I was unconscious.
You were unconscious?
Yeah.
When we were deep in the forest, he had knives, he had a panga, and he threatened me. So the worst happened.
So he grabbed you, took you back to his place?
Yeah, and he raped me.
And he raped you?
Yeah.
At what age does that conversation start?
For instance, a 2-year-old. You need to tell them that there are some parts of your body that are private. There's no one who is allowed to touch those parts.
Hello, I am Tamima and this is Real Talk Round Table. Welcome to our premiere episode. This show is an extension of the Real Talk with Tamima brand that you have come to love, and I promise you that every week we will deliver to you a transformational experience as guests. Ordinary people like you and I come on this table, share their stories of how they have overcome different situations in life. We'll have experts as well who'll be coming to studio sharing with you tools of how you can find solutions to some of the biggest problems that we are facing as Kenyans. Now tonight on our premiere episode, I want to get real on a very important topic, child sexual abuse. I'm asking you to join me in breaking the silence about this very serious issue in our country. Think about it for a second. Tonight, as a lot of families in Kenya go to bed, the reality is for a lot of children, the night time does not bring sweet dreams. However, it comes with terrors. Terrors because a predator will be abusing their bodies, abusing their spirits. That is why today, my guest will be sharing with us how they survived childhood sexual abuse. Now, I'm asking you to actually listen to this conversation. If you're a parent, learn. If you're a sister, brother, listen to the children. And remember, you can always join the conversation via the hashtag Real Talk with Tamima. Let me know where you're watching us from, and of course, your views and comments on this very important topic. Now, my first guest tonight is Victor Kamisi, who will be sharing with us his story of how he survived childhood sexual abuse. Victor, welcome to the round table.
I'm very much welcome.
And I want to applaud you in helping me break the silence tonight about this very important issue, because we know in Kenya, child sexual abuse, it's a taboo topic. It's something that a lot of families do not talk about. And for you actually coming out and talking about it on such a national platform, I have to applaud you, because ultimately when we break the silence, that is when we stop the cycle of violence. So probably, Victor, share with me about how your abuse happened when you were a child.
So my name is Victor Hamisi. Many know me as Smiling Machine, but the Smiling Machine is, I'll admit it, it's a fake one.
Is it though? Because your spirit is so beautiful.
Yeah, it's something that I've tried to overcome. It's a cocoon that I've tried to overcome. So I lost both my parents were killed. First it was my real dad, and then my mom got remarried, and then the second dad. So I don't know why, and I can't question God why. And then mom now is and then my little brother, and then my mom, she was killed. So after that, we were in Migori. So there's a children's home that were taking orphans. They wanted to take me, so I opted for my sister to be taken in. So because I love her so much.
And how old were you then?
By then I was 12, turning 13. So after she was taken in, the brother to my dad one day beat me until I took a rope and went to hang myself. So
were you living with him then?
At home, back in up country. So
he was now your legal guardian?
Yeah, with my grandmother. So when I was just about to take my life, a voice came, like, this is not the right thing to do. I've got big plans that I have for you. So I walked from Migori to Homa Bay, went to look for my mom's friend, and didn't find her. And then I walked from Homa Bay to a place called Keroka, it's past Kisii.
So you ran away from home?
Yep.
At age 13?
12.
Age 12, because of the emotional abuse that you were undergoing at that time.
Yeah.
Was there any other type of abuse you were undergoing in that home environment?
By then it was just hate, because now he's late. He wanted me to drop out of school. So that one I'll not talk about, the reason why. So after I ran, I came to Nairobi. You know, in a family, you've got in a family, every family, there's that one person that is rich.
Well to do.
Yeah, well to do. So I came to him to help me, just to go back to school and make my life good.
So how was this person related to you? Was he a relation on your late mother's side or on your late father's side?
On my late mother's side, yeah. So when I came to him, I first wanted Afia to go back home, and then to tell my grandmother I'm well off. But he just told me, you know, I'll help you. So things started. Yeah, things just started. I didn't know.
So let me ask you, when you say he said he would help you, at that juncture, did it mean that now he took you in to live in his household as one of his children?
Yes.
Did he have other children?
Quote unquote, yes.
And he was married with a family?
He was married with a family.
So when you initially joined that family, how were you received?
It was well. It was really a nice family. But things happen in families, you know, and it's something that that has got me interested in to speak about families. You know, people hurt. So I was welcome, but I didn't know that my uncle was a gay.
So he was married with a wife and children.
And a kid.
And one child.
Yeah.
So you joined as, he took you in.
Yeah.
And in essence, he became now your parental figure.
Yeah.
So when was the first time when he now started sexually abusing you?
So I stayed there for a while. Is when I came to notice that the marriage was not nice. The wife had already left. So she was just coming, just kumbe to visit. So the brother, who I won't mention the name, just told me the first day, be careful with Uncle X. So I didn't know why.
You're 12, 13 years at that point.
Yeah, turning 13.
And you're being told, be careful
with Uncle X
of this person who's supposed to be your guardian, your protector.
I didn't know why. I just didn't know why. So things started falling out. You know, things happened. He would sexually harass me, but I didn't know. So one day, because I now became a houseboy for him, I would work. But by then I was waiting for the school to reopen. And one day, I just don't know why, I didn't feel like taking food. I just wanted to sleep, you know, and I went to the washroom to release myself. But when I was coming out, I found him putting something in a soda. So I got curious, and then he came to offer me the soda. So I didn't take it. I just said, today I don't feel like eating. So he came in the room where I was sleeping, and he unclothed himself and wanted to sleep with me. So I was curious, Uncle, what are you doing? And by then I was in pain. I would go to the toilet, blood coming out. And I just thought, this is just, maybe I'm sick and normal. I'll take painkillers.
So the first time he did it to you, did you...
I was unconscious.
You were unconscious?
Yeah.
Did you, afterwards, when you regained your consciousness, did you tell anyone?
So that day when he came, I tried to stop him. And fortunately, he did his thing, and it became a norm. To me, I didn't have anyone to speak to, because first, he was well connected. And two, you know, going as a man, how can I start telling people that I've been raped? How? It brought anger in me, it brought pain in me, and that's when I started now sugarcoating my talks in order for people not to find. So one day I got tired.
So it's like you had two separate lives.
I was raped for more than 3 months.
And how often was he raping you?
Like every night.
For a 3-month period, and you couldn't tell anyone?
No. Where would you run to? First, you don't have a place to call home. This is where you're in Nairobi. You've got to find a place where you put your head on to eat. You clothe yourself. As in, whom would I run to?
As a child who's being sexual abused in those 3 months, what was your life like? What were you feeling?
I'll summarize it by just saying fake smile.
Fake smile?
Yeah.
So that was your way to deal with it?
Yeah.
And at what point were you now able to get out of his hands?
One day I got tired. You know, I wanted to move on with my life. I have to say even up to now, I've not really moved on well. So I ran from the place. I didn't have anything, and then I became a street boy.
Because that for you was better
Yeah, it was better.
than living in a household where you were being raped every night.
At least I'd have one freedom. Yeah. So I became a street boy. I got involved in so many things, you know. But to me, I hated men. And when I hear of anybody talking about lesbian and gay, I just hate him. And in my head, I'd wish you die. I'll just wish you die, because I've gone through one, and it was a traumatizing thing. And the worst thing is not being able to speak about it, not having that voice to lean on. As a man, I didn't have a shoulder to lean on and to say this is what I'm going through, you know. So my tears will not flow out, but they will flow in. Yeah. So.
And I think really for me, that is why, for our viewers at home, that is why we are having this conversation tonight on the round table, because the reality is that in our country, 3 out of every 10 school-going children are sexually abused. Of the 3, 2 are girls, 1 is a boy. And the reality is, because this is an issue that is a taboo topic, meaning that the children themselves do not have the confidence to share it with their parents. The parents themselves do not know how to deal with it. When your child comes to you and tells you the person that you entrusted them to is sexually abusing them. But that is why tonight on Real Talk Roundtable, we are getting real on this. We want you to help us break the silence. Is this an issue that you have dealt with as an individual, as a family? Please reach out to us. Let us know via the hashtag Real Talk with Tamima. And of course, on our SMS line, you can let us know via your comments. How did you deal with it as a family? How did you overcome it? And perhaps if you are working in this industry in terms of intervention, you know, as a social worker, what is the situation on the ground? At this point, I want to welcome my next guest, who is Kate Mathenge, who is 39 years old. And like Victor, she was also sexually abused as a child. Kate, thank you so much for coming on the round table. So for you, when did the sexual abuse happen? How old were you then?
I was 10 years old.
And how long did it take you to break the silence?
It took 24 years.
So 24 years?
Yes.
That's when you actually spoke to somebody about it?
Yes, it was my hidden treasure.
Why do you call it your hidden treasure?
I call it my hidden treasure because I could not open up to anyone, bearing that when we were growing up, our parents were very strict. And I thought that if at all I would open up with them, they would kill me. So I decided to just go silent and keep it to myself.
Tell me about the day that it happened to you.
I remember I'd been sent to go and buy paraffin by my parents, and it was quite a long stretch because we used to live along Gong Road, so I was going all the way to the Great Corner to buy paraffin. And this car comes, a Chevrolet, a KQP, it was yellow in color, and it came just stopped by me. And this guy came, I think he was around 60 years old because he was quite an elderly man. And when we were growing up, we'd been told that we give respect to the elderly. So he came, he stopped his car, and he told me, where are you going? And I said, I'm going to the petrol station, and told me, can I give you a lift? And I just gave in, and I got into his car. So we went, we dropped by the petrol station, and he took a turn. So when he took a turn, at that particular time, I went to the petrol station, I bought paraffin, and was on my way back home. So when I was coming back home, the same car came and stood. So he had already won my trust. So he told me, because I'm going the same direction, can I give you a lift?
And after all, he had given you a lift to the petrol station.
Yes.
So now it was, can I give you another lift back
home? Yes. So I agreed, and I got into his car. When he got in his car, the car went until when we reached the swerving direction to showground. So we took a swerve, and I asked him where we headed, and told me, no, I had a person that I'm supposed to collect at showground. But initially, my instinct told me things were not okay. because at that particular time, showground was bad. There was a lot of killings and murder happening in that ground.
So you were terrified?
Yes, I was. So we went, and I told him, no, I need to go home, because at that particular time, it was around 5 in the evening. I told him, no, it's getting late. I need to get paraffin back home. So he told me, no, we're not taking long. I'm just going to collect someone. I picked them up, then we drive back. So we drove, then he swerved the car deep into the forest. And now when you're deep in the forest, he had knives, he had a panga, and he threatened me. So the worst happened.
He raped you?
Yes.
And at that point, as a 10-year-old girl, you're alone in a forest with a man.
Yes.
Who he asked you to give you a lift. You got into his car.
Yes.
So as he's raping you, what are you thinking?
Now, that was it was one of the most painful seasons or time in my life, and I could not believe, because he was elderly. And
He could be your grandfather.
yes, actually he was, because at that particular time he was very elderly by then, because he even had gray hair. So then when he finished the act, he left me deep in the forest all alone, hurting, bleeding. And now I decided, now if I go home at this particular time, I'll be killed by my parents. So I decided to...
You'd be killed by your parents because you're late?
Yes, because I'm late, and also because I was terrified to open up.
So as a child who has just been raped at 10 years old, your biggest fear was, I'm going home late.
Yes.
You didn't really process what had just happened to you, and your instinct wasn't to tell your parents about it.
In fact, I never even opened up to my parents.
So you went back home that same night?
I went the same night, but I left the forest deep late at night at around 7 p.m. Because I was so bloody, I was so messed up. So what I did is that I went home, I waited until it was dark, because I didn't want people to look at me.
And see the blood
Yes.
on your clothes?
Yes, so I waited until it was 7. When it was dark, that is when I left the forest, went home. Luckily enough, we used to have water outside the house, so I just washed my legs quickly, then I got into the house. The first question was, my mom asked me, you've taken long in the forest, and because now I knew the repercussions, so I had to lie. I told her that when I went to the petrol station, there was no paraffin, so we were waiting until the tanker had to drain the paraffin, then that is why I took so long.
Why do you think it is that when what most parents and actually most people believe could be one of the worst things that could happen to you happened to you, your instinct was take a shower, pretend nothing happened, move on with life? Did you blame yourself?
Yes, I blame myself, because I remember my mom kept on telling me that do not get into somebody's car, be very careful with strangers. But now you see here, I went against her word, boarded a car. Then afterward, the worst happened, and after the worst happened, now I decided now I could not open it up with anyone at all, because because my mom used to be strict, my dad used to be strict. In fact, they died without knowing that I was raped.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, so my next guest is Becky Kiru. Becky is 31 years old, and for Becky, child sexual abuse was not just a one-time incident, but it happened to her throughout her childhood multiple times. Becky, thank you so much for joining us on the round table. So as well, like Victor and Kate, you were also sexually abused as a child, and for you it was multiple times. Maybe tell us about the first time it happened.
The first time it happened, I was 10 years old. We used to go to my aunt's place in the evenings to just play with our cousins and pass time. And then one day when I was coming from there, going back home, when I was opening the gate, going back home, I just had someone grab me from behind. He took me to his house and
when you say you're opening the gate gate of your own home?
No, from my aunt's place.
From your aunt's place, so in a compound? Yeah,
it was in a compound. He used to live there. He was a distant relative.
So he lived in the same area. So he grabbed you, took you back to his place?
Yeah, and he raped me.
And he raped you?
Yeah.
And afterwards, when you left his place after the rape, did you tell anyone about it?
Yeah, my mom knew. I went and told my mom, and then we went to the hospital from there we went to the police station, but coming back he had disappeared.
And when you first told your mom about it, what was her initial reaction?
You know, with parents back then, they were like, you know, don't let this issue not be big because, you know, he's a family member and all that. Let it just be like something we can talk at home and all that. But to me, it was something that I don't know, it has really haunted me ever since.
And so after 10 years, you were abused again for a second time?
Yes, when I was 13 years old. I was in class 8 then. Then it was someone who used to come at home. He was like a tutor. He would come to teach us, you know. Then he had gained my mom's trust. But with me, I think, you know, the first incident, it was really bad because I used to like just want to spend time with my friends and just go out with them. Sometimes I would lie, I've gone to church, but we would go to the disco. So this guy, he told my mom, you know, your daughter, I'm getting stories, she's going to the disco and all that. So he would like, let me go and get her. So he gained trust of my family, and then one day he raped me. I got pregnant.
So when he raped you for the first time, did you tell your mother about it?
No, I didn't.
Why?
Because now, if I'd told her the first time and she did not get any reaction, so I didn't see any reason for telling her.
And after he abused you, was it a one-time thing or it's something that he did to you repeatedly?
It was something he did repeatedly, like for almost 2 months. Then I got pregnant. So when the pregnancy was like, I think almost 6 months, that's when my mom noticed and asked me about it. And then I told her that yes, I was pregnant.
At 13 years old?
Yes.
And did she ask you whose child it is?
Yes, she did. I told her it was that guy's. And then he was like, you know, that guy, he can't do that, blah, blah, blah.
So your mother, there you are, 13 years old, telling her that your tutor has raped you repeatedly, now you're pregnant. She chose to believe that you were lying. It couldn't be him. You were the naughty girl. Wewe ndo ulikuwa mtoto mkorofi yani.
Yeah, to them I was the naughty one because, you know, because of the company that I was having back then. But they did want to like know the real story. So I was like, it's okay, let me just take the blame.
How did you feel knowing that you're pregnant by your abuser?
I felt bad. By the way, it is something that has haunted me all my life because, you know, my mom, at times when I give birth, my mom would like tell me, you take this child back to the dad and all that, blah, blah. So I would go. That guy was alikuwa manamba. So I would go, nakatu hapo stage, I would sit there waiting for him. But when he sees me, he'd run away. So I go back with my kid at home and my mom was like, no, you know, nilimekulea, I can't again bring up your kid. So you have to know what to do. Then after 8 months, the kid passed away.
And during that time when you're raising your child, I can imagine that being 13 years old, just the shock of it all, you know, dealing with rape, now dealing with being a new mom, dealing with rejection from your parents, from the child's father. How do you think you got through it?
When I did my class 8, because when I did my class 8 when I was pregnant, and then when the kid passed away because of this rejection and all that, I had to run away from home.
And unfortunately for you, you were sexually abused again another time.
Yes.
Tell us about the third incident.
That incident, my mom passed away during the 2007 post-election violence, and then life became very hard. So by then, I had a child. He was 2 years old. So a lady suggested I should come to Nairobi so that he could employ me as a house girl. So I came with my kid. The first time I came, it was in 2008. I came to Mwiki, but again, it was not the job that I was told about. When I came, it was these ladies who have houses, and he'd bring men to sleep with ladies, with
So
girls.
it was a prostitution ring.
Yeah, he'd bring men to sleep with girls, then he'd be given money. Then at the end of the month, he'd be given commission. So I stayed there for 2 months, and then one day I just talked to a guy and I told him my story. He gave me 1,000 shillings and he was like, okay, you can go back to your place. So I ran away from that place. And then I took a matatu. It was around 5:30. So when I was going back to Eldoret, on reaching Nakuru, the bus driver said that they were not going anymore. So we were refunded 500 shillings. It was raining, by the way. So I asked around if I could find a place where I could at least sleep, or if I could get a car that could take me to Eldoret. A guy was like, okay, let me show you. He took my bag. I was carrying my child on my back. We went, but again, I got goosebumps because I was like, we have gone, and I'm not seeing any sign of cars or anything. When I asked him, when we are not reaching, he hit me on my leg, and then they dragged me, 3 guys, and then I was raped by 3 guys again.
So how old are you at this, when the final incidents happened?
I was 17.
So at 17 years old, raped at 10, raped at 13, found yourself sold to prostitution, and then finally raped again.
By 3 guys in front of my son.
So how did you deal with that final incident? Because I can imagine at this point, this is a lot for anyone. This would wear down anyone. But looking at you today, you've done an amazing job, Becky, because you're a very strong woman.
It has not been an easy job, you know, because I've attempted suicide thrice because of all that, you know. After that incident of those 3 guys, a lady that we are sharing a bed in the hospital in Nakuru. She took me in and employed me as a house manager. I stayed with her for a year. And then after there again, I was raped by the brother. That thing really tortured me, and I felt like killing that guy. But I fought with that spirit so much, and I was like, no, I can't be a murderer. So I decided to just be something else, you know. I decided drugs was my friend. So from there, I think I just became another Becky, you know. I've been a drug addict. It's a year since I broke the addiction. I have got tattoos all over my body. When I'm drunk, I would get in the house, get a blade and try cutting myself, thinking that by morning I'd have bled and died. And
would you also cut yourself on the face?
No. On the face, it was a relationship that I was in for 3 years, an abusive relationship.
So if you look at your life and every single experience you've been through, would you say that it all starts at the first time you were raped, which was age 10, and the fact that your parents, your family, did not get you the necessary help that you needed to cope with it? And as a result, looking back at every single incidence of rape, emotional, physical abuse you've had to endure, it all stems back down to where it all started.
Yeah, I think the first time I was raped, to me, up to date, I do say, if I'd gone for counseling, or if they had, like, you know, let me open up to someone, I wouldn't have gotten to the point I was in.
Absolutely. And remember, to our viewers, this is actually why tonight it was very important for us to actually put this issue on the table, child sexual abuse in Kenya. We are breaking the silence, because if you do not break the silence, you're actually part of the problem. You're breeding violence. And we've had that this is not just something that, contrary to popular belief, only happens to girls. It's happening to our boys. It's happening to our girls. And I'm sure you've seen the headlines. It's despicable when you're seeing a headline saying that a child as young as 6 months, 8 months, 10 months is being sexually abused, because the question is, who is abusing them? It's the very people within our society who are carrying out this despicable act against our children. So today we are asking you, join us, be a champion, let us talk about it. Up next, I'm going to be joined by a team of experts, counselors, psychologists, who are going to help us know how can we as a society be vigilant. If you're a parent, how do you tell the signs that your child is being abused? If you're a parent and your child has been abused, how do you help them cope? Because you've seen from Becky's story, if you don't deal with it, you're setting up your child for a lifetime of pain and hurt. And finally as well, just how can we as a society, when it does happen and you catch the abuser, hakuna cha huyu ni mtu wetu tukanyagie. We must ensure that they face the full force of the law, because stealing a child's innocence, that is not something that we as Kenyans should take lightly. Well, on that note, we're going to be going on a very quick break. When we come back, still more to come here on Real Talk Round Table. Welcome back to the round table. Now, remember, our conversation on tonight's topic continues: child sexual abuse in Kenya. We are breaking the silence today, and we're doing it here on the round table. So I'm going to ask all my guests, including my new guest here I have with me, Richard Wafula, who's a counseling psychologist at Amani Counseling Center. Let's just all do a small exercise. You know, this is the round table. Let's put all our hands on this round table. We are living it here. This is where we are discussing all the issues, sharing everyday people like you and I, sharing how they've survived some things that you would think you cannot live through. And of course, just equipping you with the tools. How do you cope? How do you survive if you find yourself or your loved one in such a situation? So, Daktari Pengine, I think for me here, the most important thing that my viewers have to understand, we're talking about child sexual abuse, yet I have adults with me in studio. Yeah, sure. They are talking about a traumatic experience that happened to them when they were kids, 10 years, 13 years. And we know in this country that number goes even as low as months, you know. So tell me, when it comes to child sexual abuse, how does that impact a child as they develop into adulthood?
Thank you. It's a pleasure being in this show to just talk about sexual molestation or sexual abuse. Sexual molestation or sexual abuse is a lifelong traumatic experience. And if it's not handled very well at the time that it occurred, and as you say, even as early as months, then it actually lives with somebody throughout the life experience. And so it matters most, how do you support this person whenever they have gone through this traumatic experience. And to some, by the way, it has really impacted on them even now as they're adults. For example, others are not getting married because of what happened. I mean, one develops a perception or a negative attitude against, you know, the opposite sex, whether it was the female or it was the male. And so it influences the decision to get married. And so somebody decides deliberately that I'm not going to get married, because then they have not forgiven the other sex, and they generalize. They look at the other sex as, you know, very bad people. And others, yes, they get married, but they really struggle into that marriage because then, one, they may have not disclosed exactly what happened. I have a client I was dealing with some few months ago who immediately after getting married, when it came to the time of, you know, having sexual intercourse, it was a big fight, because then it triggered what happened in the past.
And in the context of Kenya, I love that Victor was bold enough to come out, because we know we talk about rape, we talk about sexual abuse, but a lot of the times it's in the context of the female. Very true. So male sexual abuse, it's something that is very taboo in this country. So in the context of that, when it comes to young boys, because like and I love that he's been very candid that it's affecting him even today. We know sometimes for other young children, when they get sexually abused, if it's not addressed, they actually now become hypersexual and they themselves become abusers, and most of the time who they're abusing is other children.
Yeah, that's very right. Those are some of the signs that we look for to tell whether this child has been molested or abused. But just to go back a bit, and from what Victor has just shared, is that sexual abuse robs, you know, these children of personal dignity, and it creates a sense of hopelessness. That is where now the aspect of wanting to commit suicide comes on board. But what are some of the things that you look at your child to probably tell that all is not well? And for example, for a boy child, a boy child, ideally, as he grows up, he's a very hyper person, you know, all over. And so all of a sudden you see a child withdrawn, you know, what will have made this child to withdraw?
And you know, on that note, because we really want this to be an issue that everybody in the society actually owns, because these are our children. So next up, I'm just going to be having a roundtable here fully of experts, and we're going to be talking about the, you know, mental implications, psychological implications, physical implications in some cases as well, and equipping you as parents, as caregivers, as guardians. Like he's saying, what are the signs that you need to look out for? If your child comes to you and tells you that they have been sexually abused, how do you deal with it? How do you cope with it? Well, that and more still to come here on Real Talk Roundtable. Don't go too far. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Real Talk Around Table. I really hope that today's topic is actually touching somebody out there. Remember, I'm asking you to join me in our warfare against child sexual abuse, and we're asking you to be our champion. So right about now, I'm going to introduce you to a new guest that I have with me. In studio, I have Beatrice Mwema, who is a project manager at Childline, and I also have with me Kate and Becky, who we met earlier. So what we want to do right now is get into the specifics and educate you. How can you as a parent know and spot the signs that your child is being abused? How can you as a parent deal with a child who has undergone sexual abuse? So I want to start first with Beatrice. Beatrice, probably tell us about Childline, because I tend to find as Kenyans, we have a lot of problems around us, but the reality is a lot of people don't know. If I find myself in this situation, who do I report to? How do I handle it? You'll obviously just think the police are there, which is great, but at the same time, there's an organization like yours which specifically deals with children and children who are at risk from either physical, emotional, or sexual abuse.
Okay. Thank you so much. Childline Kenya runs a national helpline for children in partnership with the government through the Department of Children's Services. And the purpose of this helpline is to ensure that children out there who are at risk or children who are in distress, together with the public at large, can call to access services. They could be counseling services, issues of information for children who are experiencing hardship out there. And most of the time you find that children are being sexually abused, but they really don't know what to do, or the parent don't know what to do. So there's this number, it is 116. It is a toll-free line. It works for 24 hours where people can call to report such issues. So at the helpline, we do offer counseling, telecounseling, and we also have a therapy room where we are able to invite children and offer counseling services to them.
So 116 is a number that you call if this is something that you're going through, parent, child, and you just need somebody to talk to on the other line. Childline is on 116.
Yes.
And as well, maybe just to get into it, because earlier on I told the viewers that just from the statistics that exist at the moment, it says that 3 out of every 10 children in Kenya have experienced some form of sexual abuse. And probably it would be important just to outline what is sexual abuse.
Okay.
Because we know there are different stages of it. So that even for the parent, they understand. If my child comes and tells me, Mami, huyu mtu alinishika, yeah? Is that sexual abuse?
There are different forms of sexual abuse, and I would start with inappropriate touch. So when a child is touched inappropriately, for instance, someone touches a child's private parts, that is a form of sexual abuse. Then there is another form that we call defilement. Defilement involves penetration, where someone takes advantage of a child and penetrates them sexually. Then we also have another form that we call sodomy, where a child is penetrated through the anus. And most of the children who suffer from sodomy, especially boy child, they don't come out to report. And this could be attributed to the way we are socialized or the environment, because children boys are meant to believe that they cannot be sexually abused. It's only girls who can be sexually abused.
And that's why we had Victor on the show, just to break that stereotype, to let people know that this is something that's happening to our children, all our children, boys and girls, not just the girls.
Yes.
And probably the other thing that I think is important just to spotlight is, who are the abusers?
Okay. From the data that we've received from our helpline, most of the people who perpetrate this form of abuse are people who are close to these children. They could be family members, they could be neighbors, or even friends within the neighborhood. People who are really known to the child, and the people who are really trusted to the child.
And for instance, in Becky's case, so you've experienced different abuse from different sources. You've experienced abuse from someone who was very trusted, a tutor, in your family. You've experienced abuse from a close relative, and as well from complete strangers. And for you, Kate, as well, from a complete stranger.
That's true.
Now, I want to talk about a very controversial one right now, because when it comes to childhood abuse, and I think we see this playing out a lot in the media, whereby, I hate to say it, but sometimes children themselves can be the perpetrators of child abuse.
True.
So can you talk about that?
Yes. We've had cases being reported to the helpline, cases of as young as a 4-year-old abusing a 2-year-old. Yeah, but what we usually say, like, it depends with the age. Some of them could be also teenagers. But what we usually say, for instance, if a case involves a child who is really young, like a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 2-year-old, then we usually look at the family. Where is this child coming from?
Meaning it's either that child is being abused.
Yes.
So whatever it is, the habit, they are just passing it on.
Yeah.
They are displaying, I think
they are
the best way to put
expressing
it,
it.
garbage in,
Yeah,
garbage out.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we look at that, and also look at the family level. Is what is the relationship between the child and the parent? And also, how is the parent interacting with other people whenever they're in their house? And what type of house are they staying in? For instance, if it's a single room, and we have a single parent who brings people in and to have their sexual activities when the child is watching, then whatever the child sees, they will still do the same.
I really think for me that's sad. If you have a child who believes bad things can happen to me because I'm poor, it's a very sad place to start this conversation from. And I know that, Kate, you do a lot of mentorship.
Yes, I do.
You go to high schools, you know, and you talk to young girls and even sometimes young men as well. So in the context of that, what has been your experience when it comes to victims of child sexual abuse actually speaking up and reporting it?
You find that I do ministry with a ministry called Brick Ministries, and we reach out mostly to high schoolers. So mostly I'm given the opportunity to give out my story, and through that we find that many young girls and many young men, they have concealed themselves. They don't want to share it with anyone. So when they hear someone who has walked their path, they're willing now. They just write text messages. They write on small papers that I want to see you at the end of the either session or the service. So afterwards, we normally have an hour that we spare to listen to them. And you find that it is so sad that most of them are raped by their fathers, others are stepfathers, others is brothers, gardeners, name them. So I'm able to talk to them, and because I believe the first instant of healing is when you open up. Because when you open up and you talk to someone, then I'm able to listen and I'm able to guide them. Right now, I'm working with 15 young girls from various high schools, and I'm glad because I can see positive results after talking to them.
And I love that we're having this conversation on this round table, because that one is a big one, especially with fathers as well, because I get a lot of feedback from viewers. I think for me, like in the last week, I have several cases of girls who will share that my father is sexually abusing me. And I think for me, that's where now Childline becomes very important.
Sure.
And we have to show you what they do so that you can understand why that number, 1 116 is a very important number, and why you and I must actually add our voices to those voices that are already working to end child sexual abuse in Kenya. Take a look at this.
Thank you for calling Child Helpline. Hello.
So I'm here at Lower Kabete at the Childline Kenya offices, and today I will be showing you how it is that Childline Kenya is making a difference when it comes to stopping child abuse. Hi, Beatrice.
Hi, Tamima.
Yeah.
Good to have you around.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, welcome to Childline Kenya.
Okay, so how long have you guys been here as Childline?
We've been here for the last 7 years.
Wow, so
Yeah.
that's quite some time.
Yes.
And so far, what exactly is your mandate when it comes to stopping child abuse in Kenya?
Childline Kenya's mandate is to protect children against child abuse. Yeah, so we run the national helpline 116, whereby people call to report issues of children.
This is the National Child Helpline,
Yes.
116.
Yes.
There is no other number.
There's no other number.
So if you're in Kenya and you're seeing an incident of a child being abused, the number that you call is 116.
Yes.
Okay, so show me how it all works.
All right. Let me show you around.
Okay. So how many hours is the call center open for in a day?
24 hours.
And how do you manage that?
We work in shifts. We have counselors who come in for the day shift, and others come in for the night shift.
And how many calls do you think you get in a day?
That is tricky, but I would say in a good day, we get 1,500 calls.
1,500?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And on average, how many of those calls actually need you to respond, or in the form of either going to take the child out of the home or some form of intervention?
Like 20%.
20%. So in the context of the calls that come through here, tell me about that. What nature of calls do you receive at the call center?
There are calls that are child abuse. They inform child abuse cases. Yeah. We also have calls that are for information. People call to ask information about child rights and issues. We have calls that people reach us to seek counseling. Yeah.
And in the context of when a call comes in here and somebody is perhaps reporting child abuse, tell me, how does that work? What do you do when such a call comes in?
When a call comes in, the counselor is required to document every detail of that case, including the physical location of the child for the purposes of follow-up and rescues. And then after documenting, the counselor usually forwards this case to a case management team, which sits and deliberates on how the interventions of this case. If it's a case that requires rescue, then that is planned immediately, and the child is rescued through the support of a children officer.
So how does that rescue happen? Do you as Childline do it yourselves, or do you partner perhaps with law enforcement? How does it happen?
What happens, Childline as an organization does not have the mandate to go out there and rescue a child. We work with the Department of Children's Services. Those are the government officers who usually liaise with the police, and the role of the Childline Kenya is to support them with a rescue vehicle and also a counselor and a social worker to accompany them through the rescue mission.
And where does a child end up once they're removed from the home where they're being abused?
We work with the government institutions, the CCIs, where these are institutions that have been mandated by the government to host these children, because we don't have our own shelter. Yeah.
And once a child is rescued, so what form of shelters exist in the system?
Okay. We have two forms of shelters. There are shelters which are temporarily, they're for 3 months. And we also have
long-term shelters. And immediately after a child has been rescued, they are placed in a temporary shelter. And the reason as to why they are placed in a temporary shelter is because we believe some cases, after you remove a child, then there are other follow-ups that needs to be done to ensure that maybe the parent goes through parenting sessions.
But I'm sure that would depend on the level of abuse.
Yeah, and the nature of the case also. Yeah, because if it's a case of sexual abuse and a child is being sexually abused by a caregiver whom they are staying in the same house, then they cannot be returned home.
Okay, and you do have safe houses here in your premises, are they active?
No, they're not active. These are institutions that have been already handed over to the government. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sure we'll get to sort of like experience what it's like once a call comes in.
Sure.
And how one of your team members handles that.
Sure.
These are supposed to be the safe houses where kids ideally should be living and staying here after being rescued. But the reality is, today, this space is empty. No children, save for a few neighborhood children who are taking advantage of the playground and just having fun amongst themselves. And this really begs the question, what can you and I do to lend our voices to this campaign that is stopping child abuse in Kenya? Talk to your president, talk to your governors, talk to your senators, talk to your members of parliament. Ask them why. Why is it in a country where we have resources such as this that could go a long way in ending the fight against child abuse, this place is empty, and yet so many children remain in at-risk situations, so many children remain vulnerable. Really, we're having this conversation again, just a reminder to our viewers, it's a very important conversation to have, because ultimately in a country where we are saying the statistics are 3 out of every 10 Kenyan children, and because of so many cases going unreported, these statistics might actually be higher, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this is definitely a conversation that we will keep having here on the table. I want to thank my guests for coming on, sharing your stories. You are survivors, and we really are rooting for you, wishing you the best. And I want to thank you for sticking with us tonight. And remember, you can always join the conversation via the hashtag Real Talk with Tamima. Let me know what your experience has been with this topic that we are discussing. And as well, if you're someone who wants to reach out, lend some help to anyone who's undergoing this, please reach out to me as well. And we'll see how we could actually collaborate with you. Well, on that note, thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, this has been Real Talk Round Table.
Special thanks to E+ for medic and ambulance services.